car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
And we welcome you into another edition of The Attorneys as we're dealing with workers' compensation. It's an important topic that you need to know about. You may have some questions right now, so we're going to make it available for you to get in contact with an attorney from Hollis, Wright. All you have to do is call 1-844-LAW-TALK. Someone standing by. They'll take your call live. It is free. It is confidential. And we're getting over to Carter Clay right now as we talk to our special guest on workers' compensation.
Yeah, workers' compensation, what I would indicate to the viewers is that if they have a job or they have a family member that has a job, they need to watch this show, because if you've got a job, then you're subjected to and potentially could get injured on the job, and you need to know what your rights and your responsibilities are, and that's what we're going to be diving into here this evening. Some interesting statistics out there that I looked at before the show. Approximately 5,000 deaths per year occur from on-the-job injuries, and that's a significant number, not to account for the number of injuries that occur during the course of the year as well. But I can think of no better person to help us talk about this to the viewers than Alwyn Horn. And Alwyn, I'm not just saying that because you're a member of our law firm, but you truly are, I think, the best workers' compensation attorney in the state of Alabama. I know you've been handling cases for people that have been injured on the job for 25 years. Now, I know firsthand, because I see it every day, the job that you do and the commitment that you have to your individual clients that are injured on the job. So with that plug, thank you so much for being here.
Well, Art and Carter, thank you for having me here. And like you said, I've been doing this for close to 30 years now, and this has been my primary focus of law. And I've enjoyed it, and I think I've gotten to where I know the ins and outs of it. So I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Yeah, I think it's important for the viewers to know from the outset that one of the things that's unique about workers' compensation is that you don't have to prove that anybody did anything wrong or engaged in misconduct that caused you to be injured. All you've got to establish is that you were working at the time of your injury and you're eligible for workers' compensation benefits. Is that right? That's
right. And you know, the Workers' Compensation Act was codified or put into statutory law. It's written, in other words, in the Alabama Code. And what you have to prove, and there's a trade-off, and maybe that's why sometimes people don't understand why some of the damage is kept down.
Well, that's where I was going next with it, but jump right into it.
The benefit is that as long as you're performing one of your job duties to the benefit of your job within the line and scope and course of your employment, and you get hurt, whether it's your fault or nobody's fault, it's just an accident. It just happens, and your medical benefits are going to be taken care of under the Alabama Workers' Compensation Act. You also are entitled to certain type of monetary or compensation benefits under certain events if you have to come out of work, and then of course if you have a permanent injury, a permanent partial injury, or permanent total disability that prevents you from working in the future or returning to your pre-injury job status. So the key is, if you get hurt during the line, scope, and course of your employment, then you need to report that to your employer promptly and get the claim filed so you handle it appropriately.
But now the trade-off, though, is that in exchange for you not having to prove that you were hurt because of somebody else's neglect or misconduct, the benefits and the actual monetary money benefits that they get through workers' compensation, quite frankly, are not that great. And I know you've been instrumental with another group of lawyers trying to get that law changed. But talk a little bit about that.
Well, the statute written, which includes caps or monetary caps on how much compensation one can receive, were written in 1987. So we're using $1987 today and calculating what a case may be worth here in 2022. But the trade-off is this: we all know how expensive medical costs are, surgeries are, hospitalizations are, but we have the best health care in the world here. So the trade-off is while the insurance company is going to be responsible for all of that treatment, not only during your time of healing, but also for the rest of your life for that injury, it does keep the financial compensation down or value of the case down to some degree, but we know how to maximize that recovery. Yeah. We can make the best of it.
There's certain rights and responsibilities that employers have and employees have when you have an on-the-job injury, but I've seen circumstances where employers will try and get the employee, oh, well, don't worry about it. You're not hurt that bad. I don't want to file a workers' comp claim. Just put it on your health insurance. What do you say to individuals out there that are doing that?
Well, you know, you may have a long-term relationship with your employer and you may trust them and it may work out that way. The best thing to do is to do it the right way, because you never know what kind of treatment you're going to need and how expensive that is. And that employer may change their mind if they really want to come out of pocket for that. The best thing to do is if you have an injury, you should report it immediately. Technically, you should do it within 5 business days. You do have up to 90 days to file a claim, but hey, a lot can happen in 90 days in terms of witnesses disappearing, proving your injury. Why did you not go to the doctor in this time frame? So the best thing to do is if you're injured on the job, report it, get your claim opened immediately or within 5 days. You know, there are certain benefits, one of them being medical benefits, and the insurance industry, the workers' comp insurance industry really does kind of control who treats you. So when you need to report the claim, because they will assign you doctors, and there are some limitations or exceptions where you get to pick the treating physician if you're unhappy with who they select for you. But that's the main thing, is get the claim filed, get it put in so you can have your treatment documented in your diagnosis made.
And Art, the reporting of the incident and the injury is critically important, because number one, if you don't report it close in time to when it happened, it can set you up for a denial down the road, or it can set you up for the workers' compensation insurance company coming back and trying to argue that the injury was actually caused by some event that was not work-related. And so it's really just really important that you get that notification to the employer, whether it's a lifting incident, I hurt my back, and let them know.
And when you talk about the reporting aspect of it, I would assume some people at home may be thinking, if I get an attorney involved, how is that going to impact my status here on my job?
Well, let's just start by saying this. It is against the law statutorily for someone to terminate you, an employer to terminate the employee for seeking workers' compensation business. It's called retaliatory discharge. Typically, Alabama's an employee at will state, meaning an employer can hire or fire you for no reason at all. They don't even have to explain it. But just like age is protected, sex is protected, religious orientation is protected, seeking workers' compensation benefits is protected also. So there is an avenue of recourse if that takes place. But you need to, employers and their insurance companies have lawyers that they confide in and give them advice. So you as the employee, regardless of how loyal you may think you need to be, you need to watch out for yourself, especially if you have a serious injury.
Well, and also keep in mind, I think that's important to know, is that while the employer is paying for the workers' compensation insurance coverage, just like you and I would pay to have automobile insurance coverage, you're actually going after the workers' compensation insurance company. They're the ones that are paying the medical bills. They're the ones that are paying you while you're off work. You're not directly going against your employer.
That's right. The employer has to be named and they'll be put on notice of it. But just like you said, Carter, if there's money to come out of this for coverage of medical expenses or compensation for your injury, it's covered by insurance.
Yeah. Good deal. Take a break right there.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the actual benefits that individuals are eligible for if they're injured and can't work.
All right, so we're talking workers' compensation on the attorneys. We're going to take a break. You can reach the attorneys at 1-844-LAW-TALK. Stick around. We'll be back after this.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was we would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas. Bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
That we would be able to use the resources of the many lawyers we have at this law firm to create a plan that had a lasting impact that also gave back to the community at the same time. And I think we've done just that with the attorneys.
Hollis Wright has been handling workplace injury cases for years. If you've been injured on the job, give us a call. Our attorneys are standing by right now to give you a free consultation. And remember, at Hollis Wright, your result matters.
And we are back. You are watching The Attorneys as we are discussing workers' compensation, also making it possible for you to reach an attorney at Hollis Wright right now at 1-844-LAW-TALK. Go ahead, get your questions in. We've got a lot more to discuss. We're going to get back to this conversation and the special guest as we deal with workers' compensation. That can be scary for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the scary aspects of it is that if you're hurt and you can't work, what are you going to do? How are you going to pay the bills? And that's really the next topic that I want to discuss with you all, and which is I think kind of 30,000 foot view. There are two main components to any workers' compensation claim. There is the I'm out of work, what am I going to get paid while I'm out of work? And then also the medical benefit side of it. What are they responsible to pay? So let's take the monetary side of it first of all. What if somebody's out of work? Are they going to get paid their full salary, or what do they get paid while they're out?
If it's a compensable claim, meaning there's an agreement that this did happen during the line scope and course of work, and the insurance company is going to cover this. The monetary is referred to as your compensation benefits, your indemnity benefits, and there are pretty much three categories of that. Number one, you have temporary total disability benefits. So if you're hurt, a doctor takes you out of work, or a doctor puts you on restrictions, and your employer cannot accommodate those restrictions, and you have to come out of work, you're entitled to 2/3 of your average weekly wage. Okay. Now, this does include the benefits. For example, if they pay health insurance, you get that included in those wages. Now, there are caps related to that. I represent a lot of people that are making really good money, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 a year, but the cap on the average weekly wage might only, I think right now it's $1,026.
Okay.
So even if your 2/3 is more than that, that's what your cap is. Now, once you have completed your medical treatment, you will be placed at what's called maximum medical improvement. So you're no longer temporarily disabled, getting the temporary benefits while you're healing. You've now been deemed to be permanently disabled, whether it's partially to the body or to the body as a whole, or you're permanently totally disabled and can't work at all. Permanent partial disabilities, there's a cap on those. You get no more than $220 a week for a 300-week period, minus the number of weeks they paid you those temporary total disability benefits. Now, but and that's anything from 1 to 99% disability. That cap applies, that 220 cap, and it's very important. But if you're permanently totally disabled, or if you're unable to return to the workforce because your restrictions or your disability, they have to pay you permanent total disability benefits, which is that 2/3 compensation rate for the rest of your life. Now, something people need to know is that by law, a judge cannot order an insurance company or the employer to pay a lump sum settlement in your case. Right. And they can be ordered to pay, only be ordered to pay weekly rate. But insurance companies, they like to get rid of cases. Those claims, those settlements can be made in a lump sum, and typically they are. And there are a lot of other things you can put out there to help increase the value of a case and closing your case to increase the value.
Yeah, so clearly just listening to you, you know what you're talking about. You've talked about these topics for 25 plus years and addressing all of this, but I think the ultimate point is that they're eligible for monetary or money compensation while they're out of work, but there are a lot of nuances to that, which is why they need to get to a lawyer to make sure that they're paying the injured worker what they're entitled to while they're off.
And I'll say this, a lot of people want to handle this on their own, but like I said earlier, insurance companies and the employer, they have lawyers on staff in-house. They are communicating with them, advising them what they what they should do with regards to a claim in terms of helping or not helping an injured employee. And remember that those insurance companies and adjusters, they're under no obligation whatsoever to advise you, the injured employee, of what your rights are or what you're entitled to. So go get a lawyer. You know, we are only entitled, I think we're one of the lowest fee states in the country. We're only entitled to 15% recovery of your settlement or your judgment, whatever we may get. It is well worth your time and the 15% you may lose from a total settlement at the end of the day, because I can't guarantee anything, but I'm very, very confident we'll get you much more money than you get without an attorney.
Right. Let's talk about the medical benefits. So there's a viewer question here that they got injured on the job and they had to go see the company doctor. What is a company doctor, and are you limited, and do you have to go see a company doctor the entire time? Can you choose doctors? How does that work?
We'll give kind of the basis and the general rules and then some exceptions to the rule. Typically, when you're injured on the job, the employer or the insurance company have the right to select the treating physician. It's called the authorized treating physician. Some people may refer to as the company selected doctor. Once that doctor makes a diagnosis or fails to make a diagnosis or recommends one course of treatment versus another that you're not happy with, employees do have a one-time option to request what's referred to as a panel of 4 physicians. Now here again, while it creates some option for the employee, the insurance company still gets to put the list of 4 doctors on there. So they get to choose the doctors. Now sometimes this causes a problem, sometimes it doesn't. Typically I've learned over the years that if somebody has a serious injury and really needs help, most doctors are going to help them. But you know, just remember, there is a reason that the insurance companies have certain doctors on their list. And it probably has to do with communication more than anything.
What do you say to those injured workers that say, well, I'm not happy with my company doctor, I'm going to go see my family physician and I'll go see him? Can they do that, or does that potentially negatively impact their case?
That's a very good point, because if you go on your own without there's very few exceptions, you have the right just to disregard what the employer or insurance company is telling you and go seek your own physician. Very few exceptions. But if you go, just take it on yourself to go to your own doctor because you like them or want them to treat you, you're going to get stuck with that bill. Insurance company's not going to pay it. A lot of my clients are in this process. It takes time because you got an employer going to an insurance company, an adjuster going to a doctor or a case nurse. It takes time sometimes to get these people treatment, and they're hurting. But hold out as long as you can. Don't go get that emergency bill you're going to be paying for. Emergency room bill you're going to be paying for.
Yeah, I know we're about to go to our final break of the evening, but this is some really important information that we're covering, and I think people realize by listening to Alwyn that this is not an easy, simple, straightforward process. There are a lot of requirements and responsibilities that the employee has to follow the rules under Alabama law, and if they don't, it can have some real negative consequences for them in the pursuit of their claim.
Especially if you got to pay that bill yourself too.
That's exactly
in a situation like what Alwyn described there. We want to leave as much time for Alwyn as possible so we can answer the other questions that you may have. And if you want to go ahead and get on the phone right now, reach one of the attorneys at Hollis, Wright, do it. You still have time. It's 1-844-LAW-TALK. We're going to take a break, but we'll be back to continue our discussion on workers' compensation. Stay with us.
I'm attorney Carter Clay with Hollis Wright Law Firm. If you've ever been involved in a civil lawsuit or been a witness to an accident, then you may have been asked to give deposition testimony. In this week's Legal 411, we are answering the question, what is a deposition and why am I being asked to give one? Depositions involve the process of a person giving under oath testimony that is outside of court. The person giving deposition testimony is referred to as the deponent. Depositions are taken in the presence of a court reporter, and the court reporter records the testimony. After the deposition, the attorneys for the parties received a typed transcript that contains all the questions that were asked by the attorneys, as well as the answers given by the deponent. The purpose of taking depositions is to ensure that the attorneys for the parties have a full and complete understanding of the events giving rise to the lawsuit, as well as an understanding of the testimony that they can expect to hear from witnesses at trial. Another reason an attorney might want to get deposition testimony is that it allows the attorneys to better prepare for trial and to develop a strategy for presenting the case to a judge or a jury. At trial, the deposition testimony can be used in several ways. First, if a witness on the stand deviates from the deposition testimony, an attorney can use the deposition to impeach the witness. Also, if a witness forgets certain facts or events, the deposition can be used to refresh the witness's recollection. Finally, in some instances when a witness simply cannot attend trial, the trial judge has the authority to allow the deposition testimony to be read to the jury. If you are a party to a lawsuit and are requested to give deposition testimony, your attorney will likely spend a significant amount of time preparing you for the deposition process to put you at ease and make you feel comfortable. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys.
The firm's motto is "Your result matters," and we mean that sincerely. Hollis Wright handles cases every day for those at their lowest point, and will do whatever it takes to get the result you deserve. At Hollis Wright, your result matters.
Welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys. The topic tonight is workers' compensation. The experts are here, and we've gotten to some really good discussion about this and learning a whole lot. So let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, when talk about lifetime medicals, you briefly touched upon it, but Alabama is unique from a lot of other states out there where your medical benefits, they cap out, say, at 5 or 10 years from the point of the injury. But in Alabama, an injured worker, if you injure your back and you're 35 years old, technically, under the law, the workers' compensation carrier is responsible for your medical benefits for the rest of your life for that low back injury.
That's right, and it is different than a lot of states. Now, there is some push right now from the insurance industry and then the Business Bureau to limiting that to 2 years right now in the state of Alabama. But the rule is right now that if you get injured on the job, that as long as you go to your authorized treating physician, they are responsible for paying for any treatment related to that job-related injury for the rest of your life. As long as it's medically necessary to pay for it, you need more surgeries, injections, pain management, they are on the hook for that. And something people need to realize is that a lot of times when I talked about how there are ways to sometimes increase the value of your case or your settlement, I've represented people that have had 2 and 3 back surgeries, and the doctor may recommend the 4th, and they're like, man, I just don't want that. Right. I keep hurting. I don't trust I'm going to get better. There are no guarantees. So what can I do? Well, a lot of times the insurance company wants to settle out those future medical benefits. And there are projections on what the future may cost when you consider future surgeries, pain management, injections, medications, travel to and from the doctor. So that is one way to, increase the value of your settlement. Something else, and the employee, they'll realize this, that there is so much oversight on them getting treatment and the delay in it that can take place. They want the freedom and they want to be done with it.
Right, and the reality of it is, especially with like a back injury, the further you get removed from when the incident happened, you're increasing the likelihood that they're going to deny the medical treatment anyway by claiming that you were actually hurt by some other event down the road.
That's a great point. The 2-year rule I was just talking about, they try to implement, because if you don't go to a doctor within 2 years and all of a sudden you show back to your authorized doctor and you have these complaints, a lot of times you're hearing them say, well, this is just degeneration. This has just happened over time. And in order to get the insurance company to approve that treatment, whatever it may be, you have to file something with the court. You have to wait months to get a hearing, and it's called a compensability hearing. The judge may or may not rule in your favor in order to order them to have the treatment. And it's just, is that something you want to deal with?
Yeah, so there may be benefits to settling your medicals out, but also at some point, you get to a point to where you reach maximum medical improvement. Right. You're not going to the doctor anymore, and it comes time to assess the permanent injury side of it, and you reach a settlement for the permanent injury side of it. Talk a little bit about what that process looks like And do you have to get the settlement approved by a court?
In Alabama, you know, a workers' compensation claim or a settlement, it's the only type of settlement that has to be approved by either a judge sitting in a circuit court, or the Alabama Department of Labor through their ombudsman program has the authority to approve these settlements. You know, I have a lot of clients that when it gets time to resolve this case and they've been through so much treatment and surgeries, then like, wait a minute, is this really what my case is worth? And they may question, how can this only be worth this when if I was hit by an 18-wheeler, it'd be worth 10 times that. Right. And what I tell them a lot of times is just remember that you're the one that has to sign the dotted line, and this has to be approved by a judge or an ombudsman, and it's called a best interest hearing. The court has to determine, is this settlement in the best interest of the claimant employee? So hopefully you always will have faith in your lawyer and trust them, because it doesn't do us any good to mislead you. We'll never get a case resolved, but just remember that the court has to approve the settlement.
I want to hit this viewer question because I think it's so important. The viewer asked, I was recently in a truck accident. I drive a truck for a living, and I got injured. The cause of the accident was somebody else running a red light. I know that I've got a workers' compensation claim, but is that the only claim that I have from this incident?
Absolutely not. That's a great point to bring up, and why our relationship works out so well is that if you are on the job and injured in the line, scope, and course of your employment and you get hurt, you have not only a workers' compensation claim, but if that injury is the result of a third party unrelated to the employer or to you, that is in terms of a business relationship, then you also have what would be referred to as a negligence claim or a liability claim. And something people need to know is that it's good to have a lawyer for this, because whatever a workers' comp insurance company is going to pay on your case for your medical treatment, your surgery, your benefits while you're out, even if they give you a lump sum settlement, if you get a recovery from that other party, from that other truck that caused this accident, you got to pay them back. Yeah. Now, they're going to want all their money, but there are ways to negotiate that down, and there are certain formulas that can be used to where a good attorney can reduce what your payback would be to put more money in your pocket. But maximize your recovery. Timing is important on when you resolve these cases, how you resolve it, and most of the time you want everybody on the same field at the same time working these things out.
And Art, that's really important for the viewers to understand. Is we see this a lot in what we call a multi-employer construction site. So you can imagine a big commercial construction site or even a residential commercial site where you've got multiple companies working there, and you work for one company, this other guy works for another company, and he backs over you on the forklift and causes you an injury. You're going to have your workers' compensation claim against your employer, but you're going to have a negligence claim against the individual and his company for him running over you in the forklift. So that's just one example of how people get injured on job sites where there are multiple claims that can be brought.
There's another viewer question that deals with the benefit side of it. They ask, can I draw Social Security, or this is the one I really want, do I get to keep my family's health insurance even though I'm unable to go back to work?
If you're unable to go back to work during your healing process, during that temporary healing process, depending on what the group plan says, you know, a lot of times people that have jobs, the employer pays a percentage of the health coverage, and then you pay a percentage as an employee. You're still responsible for your percentage. Now, of course, if you can't go back to work there because you're permanently totally disabled or can't return to that type of job and you have to leave the employment, then your health insurance terminates. Of course, you will be given, if your health insurance is going to terminate or you can't afford to keep it up, you're given a 30-day notice, or what's referred to as a COBRA letter, that does give you the right to reinstate or keep your health insurance active without it terminating.
And I know we're wrapping things up, but before we go, Alwyn is the best at this. He knows his workers' compensation laws, and if somebody's injured on the job or has a family member that's injured, he's the person to contact.
Right person, good information. We're going to have to bring this up again.
We will. There's a lot more to cover.
There is a lot more to cover. We're so glad that you joined us here on The Attorneys, and we've got another show planned for you, of course, next Sunday. Make sure you join us. Keep it right here on The Attorneys and follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Good night.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.